Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Jasmine here with Blakely Skincare, and today we're going to be doing our highly anticipated foaming bubble scoops. So a lot of the times people make these and they make them look like ice cream, but I decided to take that idea, put my little twist on it, and make it look like cookie dough. So what they are is they're a solid bubble bath, just to put plainly. I like to make mine a little bit kind of like perform the way that bath bombs do, and they get really frothy, foamy, fizzy. But basically what you do is you take it and you run it under some hot water whenever you take a bath, and you do like one or two, give or take, and then you just watch the magic happen. Basically lights up your bath with all types of foams and fizzies. And this is something that's super easy to make, very simple ingredients. It won't leave a mess in your bathtub, no stains, no coloring, no oil residue, anything like that. So let's go ahead and jump right into how we make these. So first and foremost, one of the first ingredients that I do, I'm preparing embeds for these. You don't have to do this, you can skip this, but since mine is gonna look like chocolate chip cookie dough, I wanted to go ahead and make it look like it has real chocolate chips in there. Super easy thing you can do is grab some melt and pour soap. Okay, I have the link specifically for this one. Let me tell you, this is my second time making this. The first time around, I don't know what happened to my melt and pour. Maybe it sat too long. I don't know, but it would not melt. And if it's not melting immediately, then that's a sign to just stop, get a different brand of melt and pour like I had to do, and just wait till that gets here. Okay, so a few tips. I have it shaved down here for us already pre-measured. You want to shave it or grate it pretty thin. It can prolong the process of it melting. It still should melt fairly easy, but it's going to prolong the process of it melting if you don't properly have it shaved down or melted down to where it's fine and the heat is going to pick it up quickly. If you just put like that big block or chunk in there, it's going to take forever. So save yourself a lot of trouble and don't do that. So I have here, this is going to be my double boiler. And basically, you can use a microwave. I prefer not to, just because it has a tendency to scorch products. Sometimes I like to control the heat. So I have a pot with water and one of these. I also link these too. You can get these easily on Amazon. And then you pour the ingredients in here. I am going to pour or put our mica in after it's done melting, okay? And the melt and pour acts kind of like as a emulsifier in a way to the color. It's actually like if you ever have a mica spill too, you can use some melt and pour, put it over the mess, and it cleans it up pretty well. I never have any stain or residue, and it melts pretty easy. And then it gets a little bit of bubble because it is soap, and it takes away all the mica. I like to use mica because it's a pretty stable colorant. It's really easy to incorporate. As soon as this is melted, I'm going to melt it here in a few seconds. Then you just add that in, and then you mix it. And then you pour it into your mold, and then you just let it set and dry while you go ahead and make everything else. So this is our first heat phase, by the way. Our second one is going to be with our shea butter and BTMS 50. We're going to get into that in a second here. But let's go ahead and get this melted, and then we'll jump right into how I pour it and set it aside. Okay, so now that we have our chocolate melted, I have my mold here. I'm also going to link this on Amazon, don't worry. But since we just did the soap and didn't add anything else to it, you got to move quickly. So a little bit goes a long way. You want to set that to the side, and then you just want to move it around, kind of scrape it off the top, and just move it around. Try to get in as many chocolate chips as you can. Till it's pretty much flat as it will go. And then this is going to dry pretty quickly here. I spilled a little bit on the table. You're just going to set it aside. It should be drying within like a few minutes. But while we're letting this dry, we're going to go ahead and prepare our next heat phase. I'm going to use that same container that I did to melt it. You can always get more than one. Sometimes I have more than one, but I'm just using the same one right now. And you want to make sure to rinse it out, get all the color and everything out of there, so you just have your oils and butters. Well, our emulsifier and butter in this case. So let me go ahead and do that, and then we'll slide right into our second heat phase. Here in our second heat phase, we have shea butter, I chose shea butter as my emollient because it really softens the skin really nicely. It doesn't clog pores, it's non-comedogenic, and I like the way that it adds to the texture here. Texture is important when you're making certain formulas, okay? This kind of gives it that creamy, soft ice cream finish, and it solidifies up nicely in the formula. But keep in mind when you're adding oils and things like that, I choose BTMS 50, okay, as my emulsifier. Some people choose to use polys in these types of formulas. I'm just very familiar with BTMS 50. For me, I like it better because it gives it that creamy finish. And I actually learned this recipe through watching somebody make fake ice cream, and they used conditioner and it solidified up nicely. So I thought to experiment on my own with this. But the purpose of the emulsifier, your BTMS 50 in this one, is to, when it gets in the water with these ingredients, it emulsifies everything, and it makes it so that it doesn't make a mess in the tub, and it shouldn't leave behind any staining. It shouldn't leave behind any sort of oily residue. It helps it to just all blend with the water and then wash down, especially with the surfactants paired. It shouldn't leave any staining, but I always say, just in case, do your own testing, make sure that you have that settled. BTMS 50, one thing about this is that it is a conditioning emulsifier. You can use BTMS 25 or another emulsifier if you choose. I wouldn't necessarily sub this for poly because this does help with the texture. So you may get a different outcome with the whole thing. So just to play it safe, that's not something I would sub it for. If you're going to sub the BTMS 50, make sure that you're going to sub it for another emulsifier and use it at the percentage that's recommended by the manufacturer. Okay. So, and if you do have to up or down the percentage, just balance that out with the shea butter, okay? Now, sometimes your recipes won't always equal 100%. If that does end up happening and you have to add or switch out anything more, all you have to do is just write it down in your notes, all the measurements of everything you did, and then just recalculate it in a formula calculator, okay? BTMS 50 comes in pellets. Sometimes people do say that it has a fishy smell. This one doesn't particularly, but even if it does, it usually tends to go away once you process it, put it in the heat, and then add it to the product, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and add it in our double boiler. We want to melt it all the way down, just like we did with our other ingredients, to make sure that we can mix everything nice and evenly. So we're gonna stick this in the double boiler, and then we're gonna prepare our dry phase, which is gonna be our surfactants and our powders that are gonna be the solid base of this formula. To begin the next phase of our formula, I have here SLSA. SLSA is the most key ingredient in here. This is what's gonna give you the main source of bubble and foam. We are gonna also use cocoa betaine, which you can also sub out for either another type of liquid surfactant or just more SLSA. And so this is going to be the main bubbling agent that's going to cause those bubbles. So you want to make sure you have a lot of this in here. You can sub it out for SCI powder. The one thing I would say though, guys, is just be careful whenever you are adding it or mixing it. You're going to want to give a, you're going to want to be in a well ventilated space and also have like some sort of mask or aspirator. It's not fun if you breathe it in. That's just a side note for that. Okay. The next thing that we're going to add in is cornstarch. Cornstarch helps to give the texture and solidify everything really nicely. So you want to add in the cornstarch. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not the cornstarch. It looks like the cornstarch, but this is the cornstarch. So it helps to dry it and give it like a soft kind of texture. It helps to texturize it. I would say I wouldn't sub this out. If you do, you can use arrowroot powder. And that should be fine. It's another starch, but I like cornstarch. It's just the easiest, cheapest to find. And now we have our citric acid and baking soda blend. So this is what is the active ingredient that causes all the foaming in bath bombs. I like to use it in this formula, and I do equal parts. I like to use it in this formula because I like to see the fizzy foam bubbling action. It's a lot of fun to watch it happen. It really amps up the lather, and it causes a lot of bubbling on its own. So it's going to be given a lot of action with that in itself. Okay. And then last but not least, to give it that brown chocolatey color, I have some more mica here. You want to make sure that you don't use too many colorants. Even though we do have an emulsifier, you also want to make sure that you balance it out so that your micas don't overwhelm your emulsifier. So I used a little bit of blend of two. I used a pinch of some matte brown mica, and then the other one is like this bronze color, because the last ones that I did, they came out a little darker than I liked. I really wanted it to be a very light brown sugar type of brown. So I'm hoping this time around it is a lighter type of brown, but you can always use less. You can always use less if you want. Sorry, you guys may occasionally hear my kids or dogs in the background. Life happens. I don't always get perfectly silent moments, as many of us mothers can relate to. There's usually always something going on. It's either that or loud trucking noises sometimes. But luckily, I found an area of the house where you can't really hear that going on, because I also have construction going on across the street. But that's that. So I'm mixing carefully with my hands. It's not causing too much of a stir, but you want to just make sure that you mix everything equally. And I can see through the clear bowl if there's any sort of white or clumps left. You want to just get it all mixed in. And now that this is all evenly mixed, I'm going to go ahead and go get our heated phase and then add in the remainder of the ingredients. It's normally what I do in the final phase, add everything in, then mix it back in, and then we have our finished product. Okay, so I have my melted phase that I just did. We're gonna wanna move quickly. With anything hot, I always just advise moving quickly. You wanna make sure stuff doesn't start to get too solid or hard. And it really depends on what weather you're into. Hotter temperatures, obviously you don't have to move so quick. Colder temperatures, you gotta move quickly so that things don't get too hard. Okay, and then we're gonna add in the rest of the ingredients. We have our cocoa betaine. Like I said, it helps to give the nice foamy, lathery booth. You want lots of bubbles in this formula. And then I also have my fragrance oil. This one is gonna be scented like chocolate. You could get the chocolate cookie dough or chocolate chip cookie scent. I just think chocolate works fine. Simpler the better. And then I'm just gonna get in here with my hands and just mix everything around. Get out any sort of lumps. And just so you guys can see, it does firm up. Usually I say let it get firm for about 24, I would say 48 hours to be on the safe side. And then these should get nice and hard. I'm just gonna mix everything really well. I definitely like this brown better. It's a little bit lighter. I do still kind of wish it could be a little bit lighter. So if you want to use less mica, you can to make yours whatever color you want to make it. And if you do multiple colors, because I've made like rainbow kind of ice cream scoops before, what you're going to want to do is do the colors in separate bowls. And then whenever you scoop them, just put them all together kind of like, I want to say like in a line, like so, pink, yellow, blue, orange, and then scoop so you get all the colors. So this does kind of look like some cookie dough, and it smells like it too. Smells amazing. So your final consistency should be very much like this. And the cornstarch is what helps it to not stick to your hands. And you just want to go through it as much as you can just to ensure that you got all the powders so that they are evenly distributed. And then I usually add our chocolate chips here in the very end, like normally right before I even, what's it called? You just pop them out. And they don't come out perfect. This is like a good example of a chocolate chip. They don't always come out perfect though. Sometimes, I'll show you. You get kind of like the extra stuff with it and they're connected. See, like these ones? And that's okay. It kind of always, it all goes with the chocolate chip cookie look and aesthetic, because you can see like the little chunks and grooves in there, and it kind of gives it a more authentic look to me. And you just pop them all out. And we use just the right amount of mica so that you don't get any bleeding of the colors in the tub. They dissolve nice and easy, especially the easier these melt in your melting pour, the quicker that they'll melt and they won't get stuck in your drain. I know a lot of people worry about that. This is one of these easy peasy formulas that you're going to get right on the first try, I hope. That's really my hope for you guys, even though I try not to guarantee it because everybody has different levels for everything. So I don't ever want to be oversimplifying in case it's simple for me and it's not for anybody else. And of course, you guys can always ask me any questions. So here's my chocolate chips. And then I advise making a lot too, just because sometimes it gets hard to see, especially when you have so much of a mix. And if your mix activates a little bit, it's okay. Just watch it so that it doesn't overactivate or overfoam, or it shouldn't really be growing. It should settle overnight. And then, so I'm going to mix all these in and see how they're really small. I have another batch of chocolate chips that I made. So I'm going to mix those in and do the scooping video for you guys. Let me know how you like everything. Let me know how this was to make for you. Comment, message me on Patreon. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next video. All right. Bye.